What are we reviewing tonight? So tonight we're going to be continuing with our mock, where one question was an RBT question, and then the next question was a BCBA or BCABA question, and we'll kind of talk through them together. So last week what we did was I put questions up on the screen, and we kind of went through and talked through them together. And it was a really great exercise because some people were able to kind of catch themselves when they were adding in information or jumping to conclusions and heavy on adding in information. Like I feel like a lot of people that came last week were like, oh, I can kind of see what I'm doing sometimes when I'm reading these questions. So we'll be doing some mock review of questions tonight. As always, I like to start with the fact that this is a strategy-based live, and I am highlighting strategies that I have created. I myself, as a neurodivergent person, look, my brain needs a lot of structure. So that's what I was thinking of when I created these things. So what I like to do first is show people what I have to support them on their studying journey when we're not meeting together for sessions. There are things that you can use with multiple mocks. I didn't want it to be the kind of thing where you use my framework or my keyword guides just with my content. I wanted you to be able to generalize your skill set to many different mocks, many different ways of studying. So the idea is that you are having a pattern, and instead of panicking in the moment, you really have a way to redirect your thoughts, redirect your behavior to where even if you feel like you don't know the answer right away, you have a framework, you have strategies that you can refer to answer the question best you can. And I highlight deconstructing these questions because I truly think that this is where people go wrong, whether you're RBT, BCBA, BCABA. There are people who know these concepts in and out, but when it comes to applying that knowledge to the test, it's hard for them because these test questions, I think the way they're written is meant to confuse you. Okay, so last week we did, okay, bear with me. We did a little bit of mock review. I'm doing this from my computer, so give me a moment. I'm trying to. Okay. All right, that might be as good as I can get it. How do I see this? All the links are in my bio. And after I answer a few questions, I'll show you guys my stand store and what I have in there. And I do want to do some giveaways tonight. So I do have some promo codes that I want to send people. So we'll get into that as well. Okay. So last week we got through, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we got through a few questions. Let's get it going. Let's start with 14. All right, so how this works is I'm going to read, well, actually I'm not, because my voice hurts. I've been talking all day. I'm gonna put the question up on the screen, and I am going to just kind of ask you guys, applying the keywords, applying the framework of decision making, how do we search for the details? How do we look for evidence in the question? Type in your answer in the chat, and then we kind of talk about it. I do RBT and then BCBA, BCABA question. We just alternate back and forth like that. So then everybody gets contact with a mock question and we get to practice together a little bit. If there's at any point you can't see something, let me know. It's just kind of hard when I'm trying to maneuver. So just communicate with me in the chat. I'll let you guys know. Okay, so this is an RBT question. Now for RBTs, remember a big part of it is staying in your own scope. So behavior plan specifies proactive visual supports and advance warnings. Now we know right off the bat we could take away D. Like that's, first of all, that's not what the behavior plan says. And I mean, as an RBT, your whole role is to follow what's in the plan. Okay, you guys are right. C, ensure proactive strategies. I know that there typically is more people for the BCBA than RBT exam, but I just want to point out, just in case, that we wouldn't want to increase physical prompting. Why? Just to practice our competency here. Like, why? Why would the RBT not do that? Can be frustrating for the client. Definitely in terms of that assent client dignity aspect, and also the fact that the RBT isn't the person who writes the plan, right? So we wouldn't want to be making any changes and increasing the prompt level without first discussing that with your supervisor. But I definitely agree with you, Lex. Like, yeah, that could be frustrating for the client, and we wouldn't necessarily be maintaining the highest level of client dignity if we just, hand over hand prompting out of nowhere. So good. All right, let's move on to our BCBA question. All right, hold on, y'all. Move myself. All right. What the heck? Sorry, y'all. All right, I see some answers coming in. Okay, here we go. Okay. BCBA. Okay, what are some, because I know y'all are on it, but what are some details that stick out to you for this question? Because I just learned from tutoring someone this weekend that when you're taking your BCBA exam, now on the computer, you can like highlight and like mark things out on the computer. So let's kind of practice that a little bit. What would you maybe highlight as a detail standing out in this question? Yeah, I would highlight that too. Increase, definitely. BCBA has not yet observed. That's very important information, because you haven't seen it. How are you going to make decisions about something you didn't see? Which, I mean, look, this is the thing. Like, also, I was talking to someone about this weekend, is the test, I think, is written in kind of like perfect clinical conditions, because look, there might be some times where you're like, I don't have time to do direct observation. Let me ask these teachers what's up and keep it moving. But That's not what the test is. You know, they want those clinical conditions. All right, you guys are right. C, access, generalization, and contextual variables across settings. Good. Those words stood out to me in the answer to match what was asked. That's right, that's right. We are doing match to sample. Kind of. That's why the keyword guide is, I think, a game changer, but I'm obviously biased. They really do things without seeing it in real life. Yeah, that definitely happens. So that's the thing, is when you're taking these exams, it's like, this is kind of more of a perfect world situation, where in real life, sometimes you might read it and be like, well, I didn't do that. But sometimes it'd be like that. Not to the point of harm, but you know what I mean? Going by the book sometimes, it's not, the conditions aren't there, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, all right, let's do this RBT one. Oops. Okay, now what are some details that are sticking out to you guys here? If you were to, what's sticking out to you? What's important? If you were kind of comparing it to the keyword guide I showed you, what are some things that might stick out? Now, because this is an RBT, I'm always going to highlight the fact that we're looking at what the plan is. Like, I know that's not a major keyword. That's just like important information. RBTs are following the plan, right? All right, prompting, functional communication, staff changes, absolutely. Where is it? Okay, there it is. Changes staff. Okay. Learner escalates when tasks are. Yeah, shorten breaks. Escalates. I guess I can have. Escalates when tasks are represented without adjustments. Now, plan, definitely. Details, let's see. Beginning of refusal behavior. Yeah, those are all good ones to highlight, I think. What's the most appropriate step? And look, sometimes the question is super pointed, but just make sure that you are looking at what the question is actually asking you. Because one thing I see when I'm tutoring people is they'll be they'll be labeling something. I'm like, nope. But they said, what's the most appropriate action? What's the next best step, right? And those are things that we'd want to look at. B is correct. B is correct. Prompt the functional communication response and document changes in context. That's a big thing for the RBT exam, I'd say, is like you document changes, you make notes, you share that data with the BCBA, but you're not making those adjustments. And we would already knock that one out because that's not your role. That's not your role as an RBT. Okay. Everyone's favorite kind of question, section C, measurement and data. I know you guys love those questions, don't you? I would probably highlight like access to tangibles are maintained by, because that's important information. SIB. Anytime you see SIB in these questions, it's like you want to zoom in on that, because sometimes that could be ethics, that could be pointing to this question meant, measurement, but that is that's a big one to keep your eye on if it says anything about SIB, because depending on the nature of the question, that could completely change the answer. Okay, we have different choices. I love that. Okay, because then we can talk about it. Baseline data show stable high rates of behavior. Okay, it's something else I'm looking at. So after intervention, so I'm not going to highlight that whole thing. Like after the IV, the rates decrease. Okay. However, the BCBA notes that access to tangibles outside of session has increased significantly. Okay. All right. No maintenance or reversal. All right. It's a lot going on. Okay, let's see. No maintenance or reversal, good. So the question they're asking is, what is the primary limitation? What's the limitation? Now, because we have different answers in the chat, we've kind of looked at some details. That's great. We searched for some details, but what is an answer choice that we can eliminate right off the bat? What would you, because I'll be honest, like in reading this question for me, I can put myself back into the testing chair. I would have already been like, I don't know. Good. Insufficient baseline length. Because baseline data, based off of what we know, right? Based off of what you know, we're not making assumptions. Baseline data show stable rates of behavior. I don't know how to do strike through on here, but y'all get it. Now for D, what are some things you guys are thinking about for D? Like how, if that's your answer choice, how does that match some of our details in the question? Inadequate treatment intensity. What evidence can you cite in the question that points to inadequate treatment intensity? We took C off, but we could apply that same decision making for if your answer choice is A or B. What's matching there? What's matching to sample? And I think that going back to the question for evidence is that's your bread and butter, okay? I don't know how to do strike through on here. How do I do that? I feel like old. Wait, is this it? No. I don't know. Let's highlight. This? No, I don't know. Okay, so the answer for this one is B, confounding variables affecting experimental control. Now, if you want to talk and you want to explain your thinking, let me know. I'll send you an invite. If you want to just type it in, you can. But for me, I would go back to the question. I'm thinking, okay, so we have a lot of different things going on, okay? We have tangibles outside of the session. There's no maintenance or reversal. That's a lot of different things going on. We're having access to tangibles outside of the session, so that could be impacting things that we don't really have enough information to know about yet. So those things kind of match a bit better to me, better than, A, lack of social validity. They don't give us any details that point to social validity at all. Isn't the caregiver giving the tangible due to lack of social validity, therefore causing confound variable? Okay, so when we have to jump to assumptions, stop, because it needs to give us that information. Like, yeah, that could be. Like, I'm not saying that that's wrong. And that's what makes these tests hard, is because that is plausible, right? That's a plausible thing to say. But if we're looking at the evidence that's here, we don't have enough to make that assumption, right? We don't know that you're kind of having to go outside of what's here in the question to get to that conclusion, is what I'm saying. So that's plausible, yes, but we simply don't have the evidence to support that. If we were to look at this question and say, okay, that's plausible, but if I look at what is here, what is the best answer with the information that I'm given here? Like, I think of a courtroom and exhibit A of, if I was in a courtroom, what would I be able to present? What does increase significantly due to concern mean? We don't know. They don't give us enough information. It's kind of vague. Has increased significantly due to caregiver concern. Now, if they give us more information that point to social validity, yeah, possibly, but there's not enough evidence to support that. Just a quick question. Have you ever heard of a company not having benefits for their employees? Yes, unfortunately. That is super common. Even for BCBA sometimes. Where's the assumption? The question stated that it's due to the concern. But what's the concern? What's a concern, though? That could be anything. So if you have to jump through hoops to get to that portion, I would go back to the evidence. Right, but again, what is the concern? We don't have enough information. So that's the piece that, when someone asks a question like that, that's really good, because that points to exactly where people go wrong. All of those things are plausible, but we simply don't have the evidence. And that's exactly where people get tripped up. You need to evidence. Like, think of yourself in a courtroom. Now, I mean, sometimes I'm like, well, lawyers are pretty good at, it's like, it's complex because it's not really about the facts. It's more about how you present the facts. But let's just think hard evidence. You want to know for sure. We don't want to have to add in information. And as I say to people, that's what makes those last two answer choices really hard, is all those things that you guys said, very plausible, but I simply don't have enough information. Where do I have more information to support my answer? What's the primary limitation? Now, the caregiver concern, that's a part of it, but it sounds like that might be one of the variables, okay? But that is one of the many that is affecting experimental control. So basically stay within what's asked and not look for an assumption to your answer. Bingo. And let me know after you do other mocks, as you're practicing that action and kind of stopping yourself from doing that, let me know how that feels. Because I think there is a moment for some people where they are noticing, oh, I was about to make that assumption. I was about to add in this information that isn't there. And it's hard. It's hard because it's like those last two questions, it's like, it's not necessarily wrong in theory, but again, it's like, given the evidence, what's the better choice? And I would say that the better choice, given this information, would be B, confounding variables affecting experimental control. But that's a perfect, I couldn't have contrived a better question for you guys to kind of have your questions about, because yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly how it happens. Choose the best choice. I would add to that, given the evidence that you have, because sometimes, look, we work in this field, you can pull in information subconsciously and just think like, okay, like I've been in this kind of situation before, like this is what I would do. But that's not what they want us to do. They want us to analyze. Okay, we'll move on to RBT. But yeah, these are great questions. That's actually going to be a clip. I'm going to do a little clip and I'm going to post that because that's exactly, I'm telling y'all, like this strategy is on point. Will you do this again? I just came in. I'm here every Tuesday at 6. All right, and then we'll move on. The recordings, I post them. The one from last week I haven't edited yet because I've just been working on this CEU, but that's my long-term plan, is if you can't come to these, like you can find them on TikTok or you can find them on my YouTube. So you always can go back and rewatch them. Okay, let's move on to this one. I see some answers in the chat. Collecting ABC data. Aggression occurs. Following sometimes I highlight too much. That's my personal problem. Over several occurrences, aggression occurs when transitions are rushed. Okay, that sounds important. And when verbal instructions increase. What should you do with this information? If you're the RBT, what do you do? And collecting, ooh, yes. Collecting ABC data, that's, yes. See, I missed that. But this is why we practice together. Good, that was really good. Good catch. What should you do? And remember, you're an RBT. What should you do with this information? And I see some answers. Let me see. How do you do strike through? That's driving me crazy. I don't really use... But where is it? Shift, Command X. I thought there was like a button for it. I don't know. I'll worry about it later. All right, you guys are right. The answer is C. Continue collecting data. Because you could even take data that the BCBA like doesn't necessarily have on there yet. You can't do anything with it, but you can present it to the BCBA and say like, hey, this is something that I observed. If you are a supervisor of RBTs, I think that's a behavior that you should shape. I love when my RBTs would be like, oh, like there's something I wanted to talk to you about. And they pull out their little notebook and they're like, I took data across a couple of days. I'm like, oh, yes, I'm so proud of you. That's what we want. We are supposed to be shaping their behavior to get them to think analytically. Okay, let's try this one. And thank you guys for the gifts. Just saw those. Ooh. Okay, so high accuracy. Oh, I guess I like that. High accuracy during teachings. Oh my God. Fails to generalize. Okay. Across people and settings. Staff report following procedures inconsistently. Where have we heard that before? Which is real. That's real. Time pressure and competing demands. Happens all the time. You design some sort of goal, you're like, this is perfect. No. Which variable should the BCBA prioritize? All right, I'm probably highlighting too much, but you guys get the gist, it's practice. Staff reported following procedures inconsistently. Yeah, definitely. Due to time pressure and competing demands. I mean, we can eliminate session duration. Like, what does that have to do? That doesn't, okay, let me rephrase this. I'm not reading evidence in the question that supports the fact that session duration is a variable here. Maybe, but mastery criteria, not seeing enough evidence for that. Treatment fidelity and consistency. Okay, now I think that this is one where you could probably use process of elimination. The answer is B. You probably could use process of elimination to get to answer B, but treatment fidelity, I'd say, is, ooh, do I really want to read my own field for filth? I think that sometimes treatment fidelity is something that we maybe are not the best at putting into practice. So I find that sometimes the word itself, people are like, wait, what does that mean? Because we don't practice it enough. But does anyone want to tell me what treatment fidelity means? Like, what does that mean? Treatment fidelity. I mean, we know consistency, but that is one of those fluency terms. What's treatment fidelity? See, this threw me all the way off. Okay. And this is why we make those mistakes now. This is why we practice. This is shaping your behavior. This is all very behavioral. Following protocols with high levels of accuracy. Ooh, I love that definition. Y'all write that down. I love that one. That's a good definition to remember. Very easy to remember. The following protocols with high levels of accuracy. I love that. I love that. Let me write that down because I'm tutoring somebody this weekend. We have checklists for treatment fidelity, a task analysis on how to complete interventions. And the thing is, if you are a student analyst and you're like, I don't have any hours, have you practiced creating a treatment fidelity checklist? What would that training look like? You know, like those are great opportunities for unrestricted hours. Because there are some companies that have really great checklists and tools for treatment integrity. And we know the basis of one of the core 7 dimensions is that things need to be written in a way that is technological, easy to replicate, that you're able to take data on it in a way that's observable and measurable. Like treatment fidelity comes into all of that. And sometimes I think that sometimes it's very easy to place blame on the RBT if the data isn't being taken correctly. But sometimes you have to take a look at how you wrote it might not be how they're interpreting it. Did you do enough modeling? Did you do enough teaching of how you would like that to look? It can't just be, oh, they're not doing it. And I know the people here are going to be BCBAs who aren't like that. I'm just saying. How much are your hours? So I try to do a little bit of a sliding scale because I know it's hard out here. But under $350 a month for sure. Somebody was in my live on Thursday, and she said that she was paying $800 a month for hours. And I'm like, girl, they better be good. Okay, that's insane. 800, like what? I passed on the first attempt. If you need any assistance or advice, yeah, 800. Like 4 hours, like. And I am going to be expanding on my post I made about these ABA companies. Because there's some people that even follow me that own ABA companies that were real. They might not have seen it, but I'm like, you were real quiet on that post. Is she getting the full 130 hours? That's what's in the contract, but I'm not sure if she's just in her first month, and she said that she's not close to that. I'm like, yikes. What post? Oh, I made a post about, that sound that's like, get them banned. I was like, ABA companies who lock y'all into these crazy contracts. I'll tag you. Stay with the company for 1 to 2 years or pay back $10,000. And they're talking about, I'm still begging for hours. I'm like, okay, let me not go there. Let me not get my blood pressure up. Yeah, anyway. Okay, let's do this RBT question, y'all. It just feels like exploitation to me. Like, I don't like that. And they know that you need this. I'm like, this is setting up I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Now, if it is a phenomenal, high quality, that's different, I guess. I still don't like that, but it just feels exploitative to me. Like, I feel like things just keep being a money grab, and I don't like it. Okay, anyway, let me calm down. A learner engages in, ooh. Okay, behavior is not targeted. And I always look for that word plan. Oops. For the RBT questions, because the RBT exam, they're really looking at scope. Are you stepping outside your scope? Caregiver asks you to stop the behavior. It's definitely happened to me as a BCBA. Implement behavior reduction, prompt quiet behavior, ignore the caregiver. Yeah, this one's kind of easy, but still. Now, one thing that I have a whole notebook full of CEU ideas, but one of the CEU ideas one of the things I want to talk about at CEU is how to navigate tough conversations with parents and caregivers, because this happens. I mean, it certainly happened to me at BCBA, where the parent is like, I need eye contact goals. And I'm like, let's discuss that. But that took me many years to learn, and how to feel more comfortable sitting down and discussing those things with a parent openly. So I don't know. I'm always thinking of things that I can present on. B, anytime it says anything about a BCBA, that's the answer. I wouldn't say so much like, okay, so if I reference back to the keyword guide that I showed you guys earlier, if the role of the RBT is to follow the plan as written by the BCBA or the BCABA. So if the question is prompting you as the RBT to make a decision, that is more of a BCBA action word. You can make notes, you can bring the concerns to the BCBA, but you as the RBT shouldn't be making those decisions. It's more about scope for RBTs. So I'm going to switch over for just a second to show you, and then we can go to the next question. This. Oh, dang. About keywords. The whole thing with this is going through and looking at what are words that are pointing. Like, you see how I have in here? Cues, signal, you talk to the BCBA. So this is like a whole thing I put in there. That's just like, these are your cues that are saying, not your scope, not your scope, not your scope. So that's where the keywords come in handy for RBTs and BCBAs, but I think especially for RBTs, of that scope of practice, getting yourself in the habit of identifying certain words that the caregivers ask you to stop the behavior immediately. That would need to be in a behavior plan. And that's not your role to write that. You can pass that information on, but that's not your scope. So it's not so much, I don't want you to say like, okay, if I see BCBA, like expand that a little. Like, what are the action words that are being directed at you as the RBT? All right, let me scroll to this one, and then we'll do a couple more. And then I do need to practice for my CEU tomorrow, so I can't do as long tonight. But I'm back. I'm here every Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 6. Okay, let me see. Every Tuesday. And then I put it takes me a while to edit them, but I post on TikTok and on my YouTube the recordings. Okay. Let's see. BCBA is oh. Without, and this happens. Definitely happens. Behavior occurs infrequently, does not pose safety concerns. It has not been identified as a barrier. What ethical consideration is most relevant when responding to this request? Oops. So Mackenzie, this question is a BCBA, BCABA question, and the next one after this, when I scroll down, will be an RBT question. Okay, what ethical consideration is most relevant when responding? Sis, I swear I'm going to be ready for this exam now, period. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, you are. Once you start to see the patterns, it starts to feel easy? I don't know. Dare I say? Okay, the answer for this one, yes, social validity and necessity of intervention. Now, I don't know if those individuals are still here that were asking about social validity, but this gives us a lot more evidence in this question. Doesn't pose safety concerns, not identified as a barrier to learning. That definitely happens. They're like, hey, can you add this? If it's not harmful and it's not a barrier, why would we target it? You know? Oh, thanks, Grace. Oh, thanks, guys. I was preparing for my CEU. I was like, I'm tired, but I am reinforced by you guys giving me feedback, hearing that it's helping you, hearing people tell me that the tools are helping them improve their scores, they're feeling more confident. That is extremely reinforcing for me. Now, I'm not gonna lie, my stand store is over there. So I find that reinforcing as well. Just saying. And I keep the prices low. The keyword guide is $4.99. The decision-making tool is under $10. Like, I'm always thinking about you guys. Okay, RBTs, this question is for you. Okay, task analysis. Now, what I'm already... The plan, RBT, the plan. So I'm always going to point that out to you guys. Because RBT, you're following the plan. The plan allows for least to most prompting. So what should you do in the moment? Y'all got it. Yes. Yes. So the person who is asking the question, I hope that those patterns, you're seeing them of, as an RBT, you're following the plan. And if something occurs, you are making note of it and bringing it to your supervisor. You follow the plan and you record. Yeah. And I think that a good way to pair with your technicians is to shape their behavior in terms of looking for details, looking for things that you may miss. And I feel that one of the ways I was able to pair with my team was that I valued and I created a space to show them that I valued their observations and would seriously take things into consideration that they were observing. Like, hey, I saw this. And I mean, that was something that I feel pretty intentional about, of shaping their behavior. Like, you observe something, there's something, like, if it's urgent, of course, let me know right away. But like I said, if I saw them the week before, they're like, hey, I was like taking data on this, I wanted to show you. I'm ecstatic about that, because I'm like, yes, give me information. I love that you're here all the time. And RBTs have great ideas. That's part of how you make people feel supported and valued. You really take into consideration what they think, and you're not just placating them. Like, you're like, oh, okay, that's a really great observation. that is a way that you can really, that goes a long way. I haven't been to RBT for many, many years, but I don't know. I felt validated in some ways when my supervisor was like, oh, wow, great catch. I'm like, I'm riding that high for the rest of the day. Okay. And we'll do this BCBA question. We'll do one more RBT question, and then I'm going to end it for tonight. Oh, sorry, y'all. Behavior reduction has occurred. Okay. Replacement communication has not increased. Okay, I might highlight that guy. Despite being included in the plan. I don't know, maybe that. Staff report focusing more on blocking than prompting. I know y'all love those questions. What should the BCBA address first? I'd see questions like that and I would just like want to like, no, why are you asking me that? But what should the BCBA address first? I hate these questions. But you're going to see them, so we got to practice. What's first? And why? I would get rid of this one. How do I do strike through? Is this it? No. Okay, so extending the session duration, like, what does that have to do with anything? More time isn't necessarily good, you know, despite what private equity thinks about that, but we won't go there tonight. Okay, so now this is an example where, okay, just double check it. Yes, the answer is B. But someone might look at this one and say, well, why isn't it C? That is jumping ahead too quickly. They're giving us information that there's different things that are occurring. Behavior reduction has occurred, but the communication hasn't increased. The staff are reporting that they are focusing more on blocking than prompting. So why would we jump to changing the replacement behavior? We need to first address, because this might be the shift that we need. Behavior reduction is occurring, but the communication isn't increasing. Because we are starting with the first step, you can't say the intervention worked or not when the plan isn't followed. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Great. The answer should be all of above. But if we do all above, how's that? Which one's first? You know? Because it could be that we need to extend the session. It could be that, I mean, I don't like even saying A, but let's say somebody did that. It could be C, but what they're asking is, what should the BCBA address first? And I'm not sure. I don't know how to say that. But they said you can't say the intervention worked or not when the plan isn't followed. Like, how do you know? The staff is reporting to you that they're focusing more on blocking than prompting. And we could, I don't want to overanalyze, but it's like, if we're increasing consequences for problem behavior, well, the behavior is reducing and they need an increase in communication, but that's being blocked. So why would we give even more consequences? Then we're kind of going into, so we are creating a situation where less communication is available. Like, that can be kind of like looking at some ethical dignity stuff. So I'm not saying like overread it, but you want to take all of these things. Also think parsimony. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I didn't even think of that. Also think parsimony. What is the simplest explanation before jumping to further interventions? Smart. I didn't even think of that. That's a good observation. I appreciate all the shares and likes and all the engagement during the live tonight. And you know where to find me. So I will see you guys next time, but I hope you have a great rest of your evening. All right, bye guys. Good night.